I'm Norm Wiedemeier from Crivets area. I guess I'm demonstrating starting from a rough blank or a green piece of wood. I'm going to turn some feed on a bowl. So this is a piece of soft maple that I cut the tree down this winter and made a whole bunch of bowls out of it. All right, where's your lock button? Oh, there it is. All right, my shield, there it is. Okay, yeah, and I keep the center in there. If it's not in the way, the center is going to be in there because it's not going to hurt me, and it's another guarantee. So, okay, I'm going to start roughing out the outside first, and then I'll come back and get the inside. I've got my old Powermatic lathe. Things don't lock down nearly as secure as this one does, and I usually put one into the tool rest trapped up against the headstock because that kind of secures it a little more. This one I don't think I have to do that. I thought maybe the live center was out of alignment or something that was making it noisy, but okay. Now this is end grain turning, so it's kind of, things are a little bit backwards compared to side grain as far as the direction you have to cut. You could do this all with a gouge, but to save time, I've got a little trick to get rid of some of the extra meat out of the center of this thing. So I'm going to do that. A lot of people will take and put a chuck on here and drill a hole to define their bottom of the object or whatever. So, but let's see. I was trying to So yeah, this is part of McNaughton Bolt Saver. I just looked recently in the catalog, and the straight cutters don't come with those anymore. So you probably can't buy one. There. Probably didn't save nearly as much time as I had hoped, but okay, with the way I'm going to turn my feet, I need to have a radius. The whole inside of the bowl has to be a constant radius, so I'm going to try to get fairly close when I rough it out. Gonna push the headstock over. I think so. I noticed those knots were up farther up here, so I guess they're getting close to a good place there in the bottom and the centers. Okay, the next thing. The little thing I do to kind of get that shape is if you turn a disc it doesn't have to be the right size. You can, by tilting it, you can get it to lay down in there. And I don't know if you can see what I'm looking at here, but right now I'm touching in the center, but there's a 1/4 inch gap halfway out. So I can take some out of the bottom and some up in here to get that shape better. What's that? Yeah, right. I mean, like I said, if you turn a disc that's a true disc, and it's fairly flat. This is Baltic birch. It's got about 7 or 8 laminations in it, so it's really stable wood. Because if you took a piece of pine or something, it would work for one day, and then it's going to misshape and it's going to warp a little bit. But this stays pretty true forever, pretty much. But yeah, I'm just putting that in there and looking at the gaps, and if I'm making a big bowl, I can lay it down on the side more, and it'll I got half a dozen different size pieces, but one will do quite a bit because as you tip it down, it changes the radius. So. Gotta get used to that locking mechanism. Let's see. I've got another thing that another way to make that radius a cheater, I guess. This is similar to a hunter tool. Let's see. Yeah, otherwise I don't want to. I'm trying to get this to centered by judging, if I swing the end to where it hits my high spots, if I get this measurement here and this measurement here the same, and the bottom, so that's getting pretty darn close. That'll work, I think. Oops. There. That's kind of cheating, but that's a pretty good radius right now. I've got it. See, I've got an 1/8 gap on this side, but that's actually a good thing because when this dries, because it's end grain, the center's going to stay there and everything else is going to come together. So if you start out with a little bit of a little wider, and actually if you can leave a little extra in the center, that'll come in handy later. But it's not hard to leave enough thickness to make it work, even if it's just a regular radius. All right, and now I'm going to get rid of some of the extra bulk before I turn it around. Shouldn't need this for a while. If you haven't tried turning end grain, it's kind of like a little bit like turning segmented wood, where all the grain is pointing in the right direction. If you turn end grain, if you're cutting in the right direction, it's just there's no oscillation or whatever. It's all easy cutting, and you can make a really clean cut. But and here's my thickness gauge or whatever. They'll have handy. Another thing nice about end grain turning is because it all shrinks in the same kind of uniformly all the way around. Everything's kind of coming together. You don't really have to leave nearly as thick of a wall if you're turning green wood, because it's not like a regular bowl where everything's folding this way and, you know, the distortion is, it's all in the same direction. It's all uniform. So that's pretty good for what I can do there. I'm going to take this off now and turn it around and shape the tenon on the bottom. Let's see, here it is. Okay. I'm using a really oversized faceplate on here. And the reason I like doing that is it gives you more leverage, it's stronger. But if I use this, what you would think would be the right size faceplate, I'm putting screw holes right in my tenon. So this way, the screw holes will never end up coming back to bite me in the end when I'm trying to get a foot out of the hole. Chuck. There it is. I've been using, for a gasket on my vacuum chucks, I've been using a piece of leather. It would happen to be laying around when I first started turning, and I've been working on this. Is all part of the first deer skin that I had years ago, 25 years ago or whatever. And it works really good. The only problem with it is that if you ever using a vacuum chuck suck finish through your piece, you get finish in your leather and it becomes pretty rigid, and it doesn't do you any good anymore. So I just added another piece of leather in there just to keep the water off of this. That's pretty good. I'm going for about a 4-inch because then I think the tenon I usually make for finishing is about 3.5 or 3 3/4. And after the shrinkage and from drying, it gives me plenty. All right, now this is an extra heavy tenon that I'm putting on here for the purposes of making, well, it gives me enough material to make my feet later on. So if you're trying to dry a bowl like this with this much wood on the bottom here, this will take a lot longer for this part of the bowl to dry than this part. So you're basically, this is going to turn into a wedge, and it's going to cause this to crack down in here while it's drying. So I've had a lot of success with hose clamps. Let's see, I gotta get the wrench for that. And I just, out of the same tree this winter, I turned about 15 or 20 of these bowls. And some of them I actually put another tenon out here, partway down, so I could clamp it up there. Because I saw a little bit of a flaw in the wood, and I was afraid it was going to try splitting up there, and pretty much nothing split. I had actually one of them that I finished had a crack. While I was turning it green, there was a crack across the base, right, in the center of the tree. Sometimes there's cracks. It's just natural. But clamping it closed that up enough that when I finished it, I put some CA glue in there, and as finished, you can't even see. So that's my roughed out. Now I'd watch this, put it in a cooler place in the basement or in a cardboard box so it dries slow, and readjust the clamps every day or two. You'll tell when it's shrinking away. You'll notice if you got it in a really dry place, you'll have to adjust the clamps every day. But anyway, that's roughed out now, so I can start from here with I guess this is a dry piece that's very similar. And I have to turn a tenon for my chuck now. Let's see. At home, I've got on the wall in front of me, I've got a little cheat sheet with all the size tenons I need to make for different chucks. I didn't bring that, so I have to measure it because I don't really remember for sure what it is. That's about 3 3/4, I think. So that's actually, there's nothing extra there. I just have to make a little dovetail and I'll be done. I don't think I brought the right tool for that. At home, when I first started turning, I took an old scraper and I just ground it to the shape of the tenon. So I've seen people do it with a gouge, so I'm going to have to try it. Oops, that's not centered. Gotta fix that. It's this little knob on the end must have distorted. It's wobbling too much, so I've got you got a chisel handy? Or some way of cutting this knob off at the end? Let's see, I think I brought my carving gouge. Like right now there's a hole in there. That's centered. Here it is. I guess that's a gouge. I found that's pretty handy right now. When I broke that little knob off the end there, I made a hole, but that hole isn't in the right spot, so I'm going to get rid of some of this junk. Try to find a good place to put that center. That's good. Pretty good. Okay, I think I might just the next step on this is a dry blank, just like the one I just turned green. The next thing is to, because this thing all collapsed to the center, it's it's now a cone shape basically. I've got to get that radius shape back in it. So, like I said before, you could do this with a lot of work with a scraper or a gouge. But I'm going to try to get this done as quick as I can. So. Oh, and by the way, this is something I made myself. I bought a hunter tool, and I was doing a lot of this kind of turning where I was turning feet for a while, so I decided to make something that would help me swing this radius, and it works pretty good. I actually made a few of them, so if anybody decides they would like to try it. Well, I'm not going to make any more, or at least I don't plan on making any more, but I think when I made it, I thought, well, I'm going to make a half a dozen, because I've done this demonstration several times, and I think the first time I did it using this tool, the month before, they had somebody do a demonstration, and he had something that did the same thing, but he used a scraper instead of a hunter cutter. So this will actually do a lot better job. It'll make a pretty darn good cut if it's a sharp one. But nobody wanted to buy my tool because they had already bought something. when I made this thing, I brazed a locking nut on there, thinking that would secure it in place, but the heat from the brazing operation kind of eliminated its ability to do any locking, so I have to keep my hands on it. I have to lock it with my fingers as I'm going. Yeah, that's pretty good. And another thing I would do at this point is, it's end grain, and the center of the tree, the pith area, there tends to be a lot of junk going on there. The tree took a lot of abuse when it was little, I guess, and but I found it works pretty well. Is I'll basically, you have this dark spot in this maple. The heartwood is a lot different color, and I'll just paint that with CA glue and kind of stabilize it. And that way, when I go back to do my sanding, all that tear out is locked in there. And I guess you could probably do it in other ways too. But that's what I've been doing. And another thing about end grain turning is you have to be careful. You can, if you turn this around and bring your live center up and push in that center, you can push a plug right out of there sometimes, because all you're doing is pushing out one of the growth rings or whatever. So then that's another reason why you want to put some CA glue in there on both sides. Let's see if I can grab another tool rest. Pretty good. I was just checking to make sure if I got everything right. That's within about a 32nd of an inch of being perfect shape in there. I don't know which camera you got on. Oh, okay. Well, I can't. You probably won't be able to. I guess I could hold it. It's a poor man's caliper, I guess, or whatever. That's pretty good for demonstration purposes. This could use a tune-up. If you heard that chattering that we had in the beginning here, this is getting thin enough that it's a little bit flexible, and I'm just checking to see if I've got discs at home like this that there's underneath the sandpaper, there's probably a little center point, but if put that in there like that and bring the center up, if I would have made my final cut out here using this to stabilize it, that chatter would go away. So, okay, well, I guess I'm going to switch to another piece now, because to use I'm going to have to use a vacuum chuck. After the next thing I would have done here is I would have sanded this inside to completion. I would have sanded it down to 600 or 800 grit or whatever, and put 4 or 5 coats of varnish on there to seal up the wood enough that my vacuum chuck would hold good. So this is about the point where I would start doing that. So I'm going to switch to one that's finished. See, this is pretty much the same. It's off the same tree. Nothing's where I usually keep it anymore. I've got a wrench for loosening my. Well, this is for loosening the jaws, but I'm looking for the 1.5 wrench that I can take the chuck off. I'm pretty sure I brought it along. I just haven't used it yet, I guess. Oh yeah, here it is. This piece of pipe didn't come with it. This is about this long, and it's about a little more than an 1/8 inch thick, stamped out. And so I just drove a pipe on it to make it longer. The problem is that thin wrench chews up the nuts on the this insert or whatever. So I bought a really nice heavy duty wrench at Menards, but it's too thick; it won't fit in there. So then my next thing is to cut the thickness down on that. I'm going to probably have to grind it down. I just haven't gotten there yet. Okay, we need a vacuum chuck. This one. And you'll see when I'm doing this, you can probably do this without a vacuum chuck. It just makes it easier and more secure, but I'll show you. It's you can do. I'm going to use the center all the time anyway, but I usually just use the live center to get it in position, and I'll leave it in there if it's not in the way. But anyway, see, this one's finished on the inside, totally finished up. I may mar it up somehow or whatever by the time I get finished, and I may have to go back and do one sanding and another coat of finish. But the thing I'm doing right now, it's kind of I'm going to make the feet in this tenon, and what I'm trying to do right now is I'm looking down the center of this tailstock, because that tells me where the center line is, and I'm imagining these feet here, and I'm trying to figure out how far out of here I can go, because if I go too far out here, I'm not going to have enough wood to finish my foot. So I'm just trying to imagine where that's going to have to go, and I'm going to guess right about there. That's where I'm going to aim for. There, okay, now I gotta grab my pencil. Okay, I just put a little divot right here. I'm going to call that my center line, so I'm going to Oh, I should have, before I did that, I should have. There's a wobble in here. It distorted a little bit while it was drying, so I'm gonna face that off, just because if I don't, it's gonna end up throwing something off because it wasn't the thick. This thing is wobbling around here. It's going in and out, so I'm gonna clean that up so I can put my line in a nice accurate spot. Okay. Now my divider. I think that's what it's called. A protractor compass. Well, it was. I added the part so I could mount a pencil on it, but it was just 2 points. So is that a divider? I think I've heard it called that. Okay. So I'm gonna put 3 feet on this. So I've got to divide this up into, I guess if I measure this, you could tell me what that spacing is, I suppose. I'm not sure. I do it this way, I guess. Oh. A little too big. Well, pretty good. Won't need this anymore. Okay, so I could turn this without the vacuum pump, but it just makes me feel good having that secured on there. Oh, this tape is from when I turned one of these just the other day to practice up a little bit so I could make it look like I know what I'm doing a little bit. But that tape, this is where the other leg's going to go, and I really don't want to cut that off right now. It'll come in handy later to have that there. So that's do not cross reminder. Make sure it doesn't hit. This is swinging wildly here, so you don't want to make it hit on the way over there. But I'm going to, you mind if I use the vacuum pump now? Oh. So it's, oh, I heard it creak. It's working. Yeah. Okay, there's a warning here. This is coming around. You don't ever want to get in there. You got to watch out. You have to kind of keep in mind. Here's a little thing that I can do to, if I draw a circle on here, it kind of, I should be able to see that line when it's spinning. Yeah, I can see it right here. Just to make sure. So now what I'm going to do is, you got the bevel on the back of your gouge. You just kind of keep in mind that bevel, you want it pointing in the same direction as your cut's going to be. So, you know, if I put it in there like that, it's going to be bad. It's going to catch. So you'll get used to it after a while. You got to just take really light cuts at first, and when you start touching, you can adjust that angle, and you can tell when it's cutting nice and smoothly, or if it's jumping, you know, you've got to adjust your angle a little bit. Now, I don't know which camera you're at. Where's your other camera? Well, I was going to say, from my point of view, when this is spinning, because there's air here, I can see the bowl inside the tenon, basically, so I can kind of judge when I'm going to run out. So if you look at it like that, you can see where the tenon is. You can still see the bowl underneath it. So I don't want to cut that other leg, that other foot off, but I also don't want to cut into the bottom of the bowl, so I'm kind of watching both of those things. I'm still almost a quarter inch away. I'll say that's close enough for at this point. Okay, before I was cutting air about half the time, so now I'm going to be cutting air 2/3 of the time, I think, something like that. So it's going to be a little bit more intense if you do something wrong, or a little easier to get a bad catch. Now I stop it, I can kind of check here. Well, of course, if you see along the rim here, I turned this down to closer to the finished size, but I still, even if I did here, I could take an 1/8 inch off and not have any worries, so I still have quite a bit of wood there. I actually probably, before I cut my tenon off, I should have probably turn some of this meat away, but I'll get it. It'll be easy enough to do off the vacuum chuck. Okay, I'm gonna try to get all these little feet turned down to the same size. I'll get them the same as the smaller one, and then I think I'm gonna turn it back to a normal position and get rid of some of that extra meat. So, because I need this to be the right depth here, so I can use that for a gauge. Well, that does bleed it off if I shut the valve off. The pump bleeds itself then, okay. Okay. I don't have a center point anymore, so I'm gonna guess at it, I guess. That should be close enough. That's close enough. I just want to make sure I'm not getting too close to poking through somewhere. From about here down, I can take off a pretty good cut yet. My chuck is coming loose. I wonder if that's got something to do with it. I might not have ever tightened that up. Let me disconnect this to see if that changes something. I don't know. Yeah, that's all right for now. So now it gives me a... this is still heavier than I would normally make this bowl, but now I've got a spot here that's fairly close, so I can tell when I'm cutting the off-center turning. I can use the other part next to it as a gauge to tell me not to go any farther. I still have about an 1/8 inch to go there yet. Yeah, it's getting close right there. I'm putting the back of my gouge, I can go back until I start touching the other feet. It'll kind of give me a warning. Don't do it too hard. Okay, that's pretty close. So now, the inside is a pretty accurate radius, and I came out of here and I don't feel any drop off. So that means all this part is at the right thickness. This is all the same thickness. If I wasn't real careful up here, this is going to vary up here. But so if this was an accurate cutout here, this would be a good match. So I'm going to do a little bit of shaping on that foot. All right. One of the things I think about when I'm doing this, if I do this on a side grain bowl, this would be a pretty fragile foot right now because, one little tap that'll pop right off. But this is end grain, so the grain is kind of running close to it's going all the way through there. It's probably, I probably have almost a pencil thickness, at least that's continuous grain through there. So it'll still break off, but, if you were doing a side grain bowl, you don't want to make any really thin, long feet on it. I think this one's dull. I'm going to try a little bigger one and see if I can work with it. I'm going to grab my caliper. I'm not going to be that picky right now for a demonstration, but normally what I do is when I get to this point where I'm starting to make the feet, I'll take a little piece of masking tape and tape it on something nearby and give myself a plan. Now here that's about 3/8 of an inch in the middle here, and just over a half inch out on the end. And I'll even measure where I start making my radius down, or where my transition is from the bowl to the foot here. So I'll take 3 measurements here, and that'll kind of make them balance them out a little bit. That's 43. This one's still a little bit big in the middle. It's 56. Just a little bit more off. Okay, that's needs a little help yet, but now that I made my feet a little bit smaller, I've got a bump right here that I can't reach but I think I can hit it now from the outside because I moved the outside edge of the feet in a little bit. So I'm gonna go back and clean up that cut a little bit. How much time do you have left? Because I could, I mean, I could do a little demonstration on sanding. Well, let me take one more cut on a couple of these. I mean, I've got some edges where these meet together that it's, and then I can just show a little bit on how I do the sanding and. I was always disappointed when I watched demos because when I first started turning, I didn't know how, and I thought it would have been nice to see more sanding, but okay, so here, this thing is spinning around, and some of these edges are sharp enough that you really don't want to hit them, but I'm just sticking my finger in here with the sandpaper on it, and I'm not worried about the bottom 1/8 inch or so of these feet because that's going to come off, because I got a center point there that's got to get taken away eventually, so I wouldn't, you don't have to get it perfect or anything. I tried, like I wouldn't hold my fingers pointing towards those feet when they're coming around. So if you keep everything pointing downstream, it won't hurt so bad when you get the wrong thing. If you make a wider base, the feet are farther apart, so you have more room in there too. Okay, now this is pretty coarse paper right now, but oh, here's a pencil. When you get into the finer grits, it's kind of, when you're at 300 or 200 or 400 or whatever, it gets pretty hard to tell the difference by looking at what you sanded. So this is 150. So I put a mark there, make sure I check to make sure I get all three of them and I don't sand one of them twice or something. Ouch. I'll have to edit that part out. Do as I say, not as I do. Okay. So that I saw this one here. I went a little bit too deep right in here, but you could come back. I mean, this thing is almost 3/8 of an inch thick, and I would never definitely go a lot thinner than that normally. So, and another thing is, I recently finished another one of these, and a while back, I'm investigating this. I know I've got 2 layers of leather under here. I noticed the other day when I was working on this that leather is not the most accurate. There's different thicknesses from one part of the animal to the next, and so this here I've actually I'll actually turn the leather to get it true. But this piece was just a piece I had laying around, and I think I put it on there a while back when I was doing something that I think maybe I was afraid I was going to suck some varnish through or something. And so I put this extra padding on there to protect that. And but I noticed when I was turning that every time I moved the bowl, it changed things. So if this is really accurate, you can when you move this thing around, these things all work out. But like I said, I dug in here, but nowhere else, because that thing was, thrown off by a thick part of the leather. But anyway, I can, this shape of foot I've done a few times, and I really like it, and I'll show you. You got a place for it there? I'll show you what I'm going for. Oh, and another thing too is if you don't have enough tenon there to make your feet, because sometimes if your radius is a small radius and your feet are quite a ways apart, this bowl, when I was going to finish this one, I was afraid that I wasn't going to have enough wood there. So what I ended up doing was gluing a little block of contrasting wood on the bottom. Oh, this is a cross grain bowl too, so. And I got my center points. You don't want to lose those center points until you're. The last thing you want to do on a bowl is get rid of those center points, because they come in handy, especially for the sanding, to find that spot again. Now I could take a gouge. I guess I could shave some of this off. Maybe that'll help me get it centered better. It's a little harder finding the right level when you're only working with 3 points. Okay, I can see I'm not taking anything off here, so I better readjust this a little bit. I think. Get rid of most of the center points. I can still see a little dot right there yet, but I'll take a little more off. It looks like I'm looking at, I glued a piece of cherry or something, I think, on the bottom of these feet. Actually, that's why I did it, because I wouldn't have been able to get rid of those center points if I hadn't done that. So I buried a couple little dots. Take a little more off. Okay. I'm looking at my little piece of cherry that I glued on there. I'm trying to get the thickness of those all the same. And I think I got to tip it just a little bit. That's close enough for now. But, I mean, you can hand sand that or whatever, but, I mean, I could have done this all with sandpaper, but this is how I've been finishing them. 150, 180, 280. I use these things also for if you've got a hole that you turned a few years ago and it dried a little bit more and now it rocks when you put it on the countertop. If you got a vacuum chuck, this is a good way to fix that. Okay, that's... Now this has got a sharp edge all around here, so the next thing I would do while it's still on here, I would take some 200 grit or something like that, and I would polish off those corners and get rid of that sharp edge. But I guess this is a good place to set it. I did a couple of them like that with a foot where it got even narrower than that, and it almost resembles like a, I don't know what you call that, some furniture they put like almost like a ball and claw foot. They make off-centered turnings, cabriolet, maybe that's what it's called or whatever. But I remember bringing this to a club down in Nina, and they looked at that and, how the heck did you turn that? Because it looked so odd because of the way the ends are cut off in relationship to the angle of the tenon or the foot. But